Hello everyone, this is Marc Sabatella from Mastering MuseScore, and welcome to the Music Masterclass. So bear with me as I continue to fumble around finding all my stuff. Got my stuff here, got my chat happening, love it, people are here, and so today I kind of have something slightly different going on. We're going to be looking at music, but we're going to be looking at music specifically to talk about the idea of collaboration. So that's kind of what I'm going to be talking about here. We're going to look at a couple of collaboration projects that all kind of independently started in the last week or two that, it felt like this was a good thing to come together on. So good to see people checking in here. And so I'm going to talk a little bit first just to kind of set up what I want to talk about. And William, if you're around, I'll bring you on in a minute or two. But there's actually four separate projects that I have in mind to want to talk about here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to be looking at this round robin project in which there was some music that was started by William, and then more stuff is being added to it by people, and there's issues of how to synchronize all that come up when we're going to do this. So we're going to talk about both the musical issues and the sort of logistic issues, and they're related actually. So stay tuned for that. Then another thing that I want to talk about is this Abraham, who is, I don't know if he's here, but if he shows up, we'll bring him on as well. Emailed me offline and told me about this piece that he had written in which he took an existing piece, reharmonized it, put a new melody to it, and now it's a whole story associated with this. So I want to talk about this a little more. But what he is putting forth is he wants to see people then take this to the next level of doing additional new melodies to this. And so we'll talk about this piece a little bit, and talk about what's involved in that. And he's actually offering a prize for this, and so this will be a little bit of this will be a challenge with a little prize at the end for someone. So we'll talk about that a little bit today. And then also just yesterday, Megan came on board here, and Megan was interested. She had posted this to the MuseScore forum about a piece that I don't even know the origin of the piece, but basically Liberace there's this video of him talking about this book and about this song, and was wanting to get this transcribed. And, this is a little collaboration in itself between Megan and anyone else who wants to participate. And so I want to talk about this project a little bit. And specifically, we'll talk also about what's going on musically in the piece. I can give you a head start on the transcription. I mean, I listened to it, and I didn't listen to the whole thing, but I listened to enough of it that he's speaking my language, let's say that. And then finally, I also want to talk a little bit about my own composition, Pie Jesu, that I wrote as a demonstration for my Counterpoint course. And I've played it a little bit here in the masterclass before back then. But I'm actually putting together now a recording. And when I say I'm putting together a recording, a collaborative recording here at the university where I teach, Regis University, and I have a bunch of my students lined up to each record parts, and we're actually starting that this afternoon. And I want to show you a little bit about how I'm planning to do that, and also open it up to anyone who wants to participate as well, any of you who want to participate. And I will be using the Bandlab platform, which has been discussed a little bit in the community. It's an online DAW, digital audio workstation, a very simple one, but it all works online, no software to download, and it specifically is designed for collaboration in kind of the same way that like Google Docs is a word processor that's specifically designed for collaboration. Bandlab is a digital audio workstation designed for collaboration. And its model of how it does that collaboration is very different from Google Docs. It's not just multiple people all doing their own thing at the same time, although you can do that. And we tried that. Some of you may remember like a year and a half ago, Thanksgiving, we did I had written this arrangement of the traditional hymn, We Gather Together, that's done in the United States at Thanksgiving sometimes. And anyhow, we use Bandlab for that. So anyone who was around for that, you've seen that. So hopefully that's a lot of different things to talk about here, and so I'm going to try to kind of keep on track and not go too deep into any one of them, but I want to get people excited about the idea of collaboration. I want to show you these projects you could participate in, and then pick one, pick two, pick all four, I don't care what, but look at ways of participating in this. So, by the way, I'm assuming that I'm actually truly live and that you all can see and hear me. Someone might want to confirm that fact for me in the chat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by looking at the actual collaborative piece here that William started. And so, William, I'm going to invite you to co-host, and you're welcome to accept the invitation, and then you can unmute and do all the stuff there, and then we can talk some. So I see that you are in the process of joining. So start talking so I know when your audio is here. Takes a moment to make sure that's all set up usually.
Hello.
Hello, I hear you, and hopefully everyone else can hear. Everyone else hear William all right? Hello, William. It's good to speak. So tell me about anything you want to tell me about the piece before we start listening to the various versions of it. Any thoughts you have about it, etc. Yeah.
So basically what happened was somebody suggested doing a sort of round robin, and I liked the idea, and somebody invited me to go ahead and start it, so I did. I wrote a 4-bar phrase and posted it, and people have added onto it from there.
Right. And so one thing that we discovered is as people started adding to it, they weren't necessarily adding to the most recent version. Sometimes it did what we call a fork, where it went back to an earlier version and then someone added to that, right?
Yeah, we had one instance where somebody added to the second version, I believe.
Right. And if you think about it, that's almost inevitable that that's going to happen, because two people are going to download what might be the most recent version at the time, and then they spend some time working on it. And if they spend, more than a second or two working on it, by the time they post theirs, someone else has probably posted another version that doesn't, and they're not going to see each other's changes. And so there will be some work merging changes. That's kind of inevitable. So we'll talk about strategies for that. But first, I just want to play the piece. So let's hear the original version. Anything you want to tell us about where the idea for the music itself came from?
It was more of a, let me just see what random interesting thing I can come up with on the spot.
All right, perfect. So let's hear random interesting on the spot melody here. There you go. It's a perfectly nice melody. It's interesting in both rhythmically and melodically. It takes me a second to sort of understand what's going on with the melody, and I look at that as a good thing. It means it's not so crazy simple that it doesn't want to go anywhere. So I want to hear this thing again. All right, yeah, nice melody. So the next version that got added was, I believe, this one, right? This is, if I'm not mistaken, was Humble the Music music that added the next 4 bars. Does that sound correct? Let me get the chat back here, make sure that that we're seeing here. Great.
Yeah, that was right.
Okay, so let's hear now the 4 measure, the 4 additional measure version. All right, yeah, so this is a really nice addition, and one of the things that I like about it in particular is, William's screen disappeared. Yeah, maybe if everyone else can still see, then hopefully everything's okay. Are you back, William? Can you hear me, and can you see? Is the other question. Okay, he's going to leave and rejoin. So we'll see. Yeah, I can't... Never know for sure what's actually going to happen. When he comes back, I'll probably have to he did come back as co-host. I didn't have to re-invite him. Okay, so one of the things that I like in particular about the addition here is, great, I'm glad you can see, is the use of the accidentals. And it's not even just, oh, I like accidentals. I mean, I do like accidentals, sure. But aside from that, they tell me something fairly specific about harmony in a way the original melody is quite ambiguous. So, William, did you have particular harmonies in mind for your melody that you just didn't write in?
I thought about harmonizing it, but I'm only just learning harmony with my teacher, so
Gotcha.
I don't know a whole lot about
Okay.
it.
So, for instance, when I hear at the beginning, it very much suggests the possibility of 5 to 1. It's not the only possibility, but there's certain places where the melody itself suggests things harmonically. This phrase here really feels like it's 164 or 1C. I forget. Dave, could you remind me how the letters work in Britain? Is A first inversion or is A root position? That's what I can never remember. Or anyone who knows that system. But anyhow, it's D triad in second inversion and then an A chord, and then going to a D. It's not the only way of harmonizing that, but it's the obvious way. There's a lot of other places, though, in the melody that don't have an obvious place. But here, this is very obviously, to me, suggesting D and then a 7th going to G. The C natural does that because that's what harmony does, where the reason that we typically have a C natural in the key of D is this exact case. We have a 1 chord that becomes a 7th chord to lead us to the 4 chord. So every time we introduce accidentals into a melody, it starts to suggest something. So I'm curious, William, when you say you're just starting to study harmony, does that thing that I just said make sense? Does this resonate with things that you're starting to learn yet?
Sort of.
Okay. So, like, the fact that the C is not in the key, and if you look at the melody, that is a D major triad. And so we already kind of feel like we're playing a D major triad. By putting a C on it, we're creating what's called a dominant 7th chord, and that dominant 7th chord resolves that way, resolves down a 5th to G. So by use of these accidentals, we suggest things. Or this little passage that suggests a similar sort of thing going to a B minor chord. So I expect this to be a B minor going to F sharp 7, coming back to B. So the melody itself can suggest things about harmony. Some melodies can be very generic in a good way, meaning that the melody supports a lot of different harmonies. Some melodies are much more specific. So so far so good. The next addition was, I believe, this one where Dave added a viola part. Does that sound right, William?
Yes.
Okay. So 1B is first inversion, 1C is second. Thank you. 1 and so 1A. So yeah, that whole system of 1A, 1B, C, it's very common in the United Kingdom and other, countries, that I guess probably Australia, other Commonwealth countries. I don't actually know. So this version now, by having added a viola part, we have two parts, and now we're going to start, seeing if any of these things that I'm saying about chords reflect in what Dave actually did here. So let's hear this. And I'm actually, I'll just make myself read alto clef because it's good for us. All right. So yeah, Dave's version has got some nice counterpoint to it, right? The rhythms mostly are in the cracks between the original rhythms. So that where the original had a long note, Dave's part has moving notes and so forth. Now his harmonies that are being implied here are not necessarily the harmonies that I was saying seemed to be implied by those melodies. And that's fine because I've mentioned, I'm all about reharmonization and things. So he's definitely taking it in a slightly... That's what is that? That's so he's actually got like a G chord being implied here, or an E minor chord, not the B minor chord that I imagined. And so when you do that, then it causes you to look at things a little bit differently. But this is the point at which now the harmonies are starting to become settled, and it's going to be hard to change the harmonies to something else because then the viola part won't work with it. You can probably pick multiple chords for this measure if it's only a violin part, but by the time we have the viola part, that's when things get off from there. Now, Trevor's was the next version. Is this true? Right here? Does that sound right? That Trevor added a part next?
I think,
I think
there it is. Okay. I'm
think
trying to
true.
follow along on my end.
Yeah, and I'm following along through the threads there. So this version now adds piano in the next, like he didn't change what was already there, he added to it. So I'm going to play that. All right. So what Trevor has done, and I'm pretty sure it's Trevor. So if I'm telling any lies, definitely correct me here. But what he has done is he's added new music, but reused a lot of those same rhythms. Ba ba da ba da ba. Right. That was that do ba da 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 da. And not just the rhythm, but the or right, the actual shape. The fact that it's this pairing of thirds. That's like an important aspect because the original version was that shape. And so he's reusing that motif, but he's also using like this little motif, the ba ba da da dum. And again, I got to think is where that is, except I'm in the wrong octave. That ascending sixteenths and coming back down, ascending sixteenths coming back down, and not just ascending sixteenths, but ascending sixteenths in which you've tied into it. So Trevor's new music has reused the motifs from the original without actually specifically just repeating the melody. And when I say reusing the motif, this motif, the original, the ba-da-da-da-dum, is a descending motif. Trevor's version here is an ascending version of that motif. And so this is all good compositional development stuff. So, so far the way, oh yes, and yeah, that's a great idea, Joanne. I would say everyone, if you're going to add stuff, just add a little text note to it. Add a little, whoops, not Control T in there. Come back to MuseScore, Control T, and that will let you add text, and you can say Trevor or whoever, you can just add text to your own part there to mark that. Don't use rehearsal marks, because rehearsal marks will always go to the top staff, and you're probably working on, some staff other than the top staff. Now, in this case, Trevor is actually working all 4 staves at once, so he could actually notate it there. But in any case, that's what I'll recommend. Stick staff text in there to identify your own contributions. So far, so good. But then what happened next was Rod came and he had started with an earlier version, the version that Humble in the Music had. He started his work before Trevor did his edition, and I guess before Dave did his as well. So he'd probably started it by downloading Humble in the Music's version. And so his version is back to the 1 line. And then he adds, okay, so at this point, as has been noted, Dave's contribution and Trevor's contribution have been lost. But that's not a problem. So I have some thoughts about the way of resolving that effectively. But before I tell you my thoughts, William, do you have thoughts about this? Well, I assume if you're still on here.
Well, my idea was that possibly Mr. Woodhouse could add his part onto the end or work it into the middle. Well, I'm not really sure what to do about that. So
that's a possibility. So what I hear you saying, William, is that instead of having Rod's line here, bar 9, follow bar 8 directly, to instead go back to Trevor's version in which bar 9 was different and put his part after that. In other words, just changing the order of these parts. Now that could totally work. It's going to depend on whether it feels like this part like this is leading into this nicely, but it also leads into Rod's nicely. What I don't know is if they lead into each other as nicely. I don't know if Rod's leads into Trevor's or if Trevor's leads into Rod's or if they go in different directions. So here's an alternative thought. And I've mentioned this type of thing before in the not distant past. Can't remember if it was during this or whether it was during an office hours session. But think of it as perhaps a first and second ending. In other words, we might have we might have this first 8 bars that first goes the way Trevor took it, and then the theme returns later. But when it returns later, it goes in the direction that Rod took it. And so not only has it just gotten a little bit longer, it's actually gotten twice as long. So now we're going to have these 8 bars followed by Rod's 8 bars, and then back to the original 8 bars followed by Trevor's 8 bars. So it's a 32-bar thing now, or vice versa. Could go original 8 bars followed by Trevor's, and then original 8 bars followed by Rod's. That way you get to keep the connections. You know, Rod's contribution was meant to follow bar 8, not to follow Trevor's, and there's no guarantee that they would. So that's something that could be someone else's contribution. Your contribution could be that sort of thing, not even writing new notes, but just doing that sort of copy-paste job to decide how that stuff might work. Does that make sense when I'm describing that, William?
Yeah. Excuse me, a little sore throat.
Yeah. I use that technique a lot in my own compositions, you know, not having anything to do with collaboration, but just I'll write down an idea and then I'll write down another idea. And I'm usually doing this on paper. I don't write directly into MuseScore very often because I'm working way too fast to want to slow down and set something down in stone like that. So I'm scribbling on paper, and I'll scribble down an idea, and then I'll scribble down the next idea, but then I'm like, ooh, but wait a minute, instead of going here, it could go to this other place, and I'll draw a little arrow and draw, like, here's the other place it could go. And so when Jim Ivey posted recently a video talking about someone's composition process, and I saw one of their things with scribbles and arrows, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's my language, totally. That's how my compositions almost always start. So, any words going forward? Because I do want to move on and then talk about the other things that I said I was going to talk about, but I knew I wanted to focus on this a lot because a lot of people have already been involved. Any other, suggestions or anything you want to give us going forward, William?
No, that looks good.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for starting this project, and thanks for coming on board here. And yeah, I look forward to seeing where this all goes. Okay, see ya.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so there we go. So I want to next move on, and I guess I'm going to give Abraham a moment to see if he shows up, because if he does, then I'll talk about his. But I guess I'm not going to talk too much about my piece other than to show you Bandlab so that you can see what the thing is. Because the model it has of how collaboration works is one that most people find frustrating at first until they realize that it's actually a very sensible way to do things. So let me load up. Actually, it should be in my recent scores, shouldn't it? Come on, recent scores, PAYSU. Oh, it's only recent on my other computer. Sorry about that. Scores. And courses, Counterpoint Exercises, PAYSU. So this is my 4-part piece that I used as a demonstration of counterpoint techniques, a particular style of a Renaissance motet. And so this is the basic idea here. And then more voices come in, etc. And then a 4th voice. So it's for 4 voices, and it's got lyrics, right? MuseScore's not going to give me that, and I don't want to hear some computerized imitation. So instead, what I've done is I've created a project for this in Bandlab. And what Bandlab does, so I'll show you this thing in Bandlab, and what I did was I exported those 4 parts to audio. And I did that because if you use MIDI, Bandlab is pretty limited as digital audio workstations go. You can't change tempo mid-score. with a MIDI file. So in Bandlab. So I couldn't do like a retard at the end, and I wanted to. So I did a retard at the end in MuseScore by using the nice plugin that exists for that. But in order to get that in Bandlab, I couldn't work with a MIDI file. I had to work with audio files. So Bandlab gives you a maximum of 16 tracks. So I've set up 16 tracks, most of them are empty because we haven't started recording them yet. But then here are those exported audios. And you're going to hear it's exactly what we just heard, right? Exactly the same music, right? And then the next voice comes in. So what you can then do is in these 12 tracks that you have available here, start recording things. And so you could record, like I could sing, I could record this thing myself. Now, in order to do that, you would want to have the music through there coming through headphones, and so I can't really do that the way it should go, but I'm just, for demonstration purposes, I'm going to try it anyhow. I'm just going to solo this track and see if I can do it. Oh, only 2 beats? Okay, sorry. I thought it was going to be 4. P, A, Jesu, Domine. There we go. Did I record it? I thought I recorded it. Yes, I recorded it. And then I can come to the next track and solo it and record it. Oops, I'm recording the wrong track. I'm soloing the wrong track. Solo track 2. And I'm just going to have to count to be sure I come in at the right spot. P, A, Jesu, Domine. All right, now I've got 2 tracks. And if I play them both together, P, A, Jesu, Domine, etc. Now, when I did that, I was just singing along with just the, watching the thing and trying to remember the tempo in my head. If I did it for real, I would reroute the sound into my headphones. But I didn't want it coming through the speaker because then my microphone would pick it up. But the point is you can then record these tracks like this, and you can record as many tracks, well, you can record up to these 12 tracks like this, up to 16 total, but 4 of them are already taken up. So I could do this, but then I can only do this as long as I'm sitting here in front of the computer. As soon as I leave, then it's going to be the exact same situation that you all are facing with that round robin. In other words, someone else, then if I leave right now, exit this, it'll save it, but then the next person who starts, it's going to start from here. But then if someone else says, oh, I want to work on it too, it's also going to start from there. So you're going to have 2 separate copies going on, and one person's going to add their changes, and another person's going to add their changes, and they're not going to talk to each other. So you can either just take turns and say, you can't work on it until you have permission to work on it. That's one way to do it. One way is to have an actual a stone, a thing that says I'm the person working on this. No one else will work on it until I upload my version, and then no one else. And then the next person who wants to start says, okay, I'm next, and then no one else works on it until they upload their finish. You could do that, but there's nothing wrong with doing these little forks where 2 people are both working on the same version. So that's totally fine, because then you can just recombine them like I showed that you could do with that round robin piece. Just put repeats around it and have the form go A, B, and then come back to A and go to C, because you've got different people's contributions, B and C. In this case, I'm not rearranging the form. I'm just going to copy and paste later. So when I exit out of this, the next people who record, the next person who records might add track 3, but if someone else records at the same time, they're also going to have track 3. Well, that's fine. I'll just load. Bandlab manages all that for you. It'll save everyone's version separately, and then all I have to do is load them and copy and paste from one into the other, and I can combine them all. So Bandlab makes it so you can't screw it up. You can't, even if I go back in and delete someone's track, I'm only deleting it from my fork. the original version that they created is still there, just like what you're seeing with the round robin. Rod didn't get rid of Trevor's stuff. There's no way he could delete Trevor's. Trevor's is still there, right? You can still download it. Rod might have deleted it from his copy, but it's still there, and someone who has access to both can copy and paste them together. So managing that sort of collaboration and the synchronization is it is a challenge, but it is an achievable challenge. So I will just say I'm going to post the link for this project later, and if someone else wants to try to record their own voice on this, you'd be welcome to. Bandlab, you have to sign up for an account, but it's free, and then you can just pick a part to learn and do it. So I'll post the information about that later. So that's my piece, PAYSU, and how Bandlab allows everyone to record their own tracks. So, and those of you, again, who were there when we did, move tracks is really easy. There we go. So like when I went and played this, you may have noticed they weren't perfectly synchronized. Right there is where this should start. So I want to line up, I want to put my cursor right where Domine is in the soprano part and move the alto part to start right there. So there we go. And it's just drag and drop. Simple as that. So, and then copy and paste just works the same as anything else. You can also export, I can if I right click this thing, you'll see a thing that says export region as wave. So you can save wave files of all the individual little clips and then load that wave file into another fork. So all sorts of different things you can do with Bandlab. I encourage you to explore it, as you see fit. So anyhow, Bandlab allows for all those sorts of things to happen. So what I'm going to do now, though, is move on to Megan's little project here. Because again, actually I am going to check real quick, see if Abraham's around, because I would like him to be able to describe what he has in mind. But, I will talk about it. But I'm just going to play Megan's piece real quick here. So Bandlab is online. It's online. It's like Google Docs. You sign up for it, and then immediately you're working on something. MuseScore.com is different in that you're uploading things and downloading. There's no uploading and downloading here other than to copy and paste between forks. Other than that, it's more like Google Docs, where you go into a document and you start typing, and then later on you go to another computer and you can just go to that same document. So it's more sophisticated than Audacity in that it can manage all that online stuff, and it can do MIDI. But it's less sophisticated than Audacity in that its editing capabilities are more limited, just basic copy and pasting and cutting around kind of stuff. So by all means, go check it out. They've got some good tutorials and stuff. But compared to Audacity, it would be this constant uploading, downloading process like we're having to do with the round robin piece. There's no uploading and downloading of this. You just log into the project. You just click the link and there you are. So it's, again, Google Docs is the best analogy I can think of for how it works. So I'm going to, again, flip gears over to talk about Megan's piece here, which is this Liberace thing. And so he talks about this song, and then she wants to learn it on the piano. And it's not clear yet if she wants to just learn the accompaniment and someone's going to sing it, whether she's going to sing it, someone else is going to sing it, or if she wants it turned into a solo piano arrangement. So that'll have to get clarified. But she gave the link to it, and when you click the link, yes, it's this whole series of things, but right at the top, people were confused about what it was, which of the videos, but it's the very first one here that's at the top. Liberace TV show. He introduces the book Magic of Belief. That's the one. And it's somewhere here about a minute in. Whoops. Where he starts singing. actually, I'm going to go back to the intro even, because I want to make a point here about learning songs by ear. This is something I talked about some during office hours with the people who were there on Tuesday, and talked about it with Megan briefly, or, we exchanged about it on musescore.org, where the thing is that so yeah, one more Bandlab question. Yes, you can stretch audio. So if you're saying something a little too slow, you can stretch it. Quality, not so good. You can, but I don't recommend it. So learning songs by ear, we often talk about ear training as a thing, that you learned how to hear things by ear. But theory is not a separate thing from that. The more you understand about the language of harmony, the easier it's going to be to hear how these things go. And I'm going to give you a real simple demonstration of this. I'm going to give you a series of 9 numbers to I'm going to say 5, 8, 4, 7, 1, 9, 3, 6, 2. Now, I want to know if anyone can repeat that series of numbers back to me. My guess is I'm going to get all sorts of not quite right answers. But feel free to post in there and we'll see. But here's another series of 9 numbers. You ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think every one of you can repeat that series of numbers back perfectly. Why? Okay, 1, 9, nope, that's not right. You're close, though. You are quite close, William. Quite close, yeah. A lot of those numbers are in the right place. I know that number because I did it by taking 2 numbers I knew and did a particular permutation on them. But that it made no sense. There's no obvious pattern to it. 5, 8, 4, 7, 1, 9, 3, 6, 2. Sora, I think that was right. But Joanne, my point is, no. The point is we're trying to learn by ear. And my point is, if it's something random like that, you're not going to be able to learn it by ear. Although Sora got it right, I will say that is the right answer. Unless the 3 and the 6 were backwards, that I can't say. Yeah, obviously it's not sustainable. You're not going to get a longer series. And if I had rattled them all off faster, it probably would not have gone even as well as that. It's the fact that it's a random seeming series that you're not going to do well. But if it's not random, if it's following a pattern, if it's an identifiable pattern, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is an identifiable pattern, then you can learn it. And lyrics are an identifiable pattern because lyrics are in the language. Now, assuming it's a language you speak. If I give you a set of lyrics in German and you don't speak German, you might struggle remembering that. But also, if I give you a random series of words, like wasn't that to lyrics, purpose, remember, but on that, you probably couldn't recite that sequence of words back accurately. But if I say lyrics do that for you, but I wasn't listening to remember on purpose, probably most of us could regurgitate that sentence because it made sense. My point is, when something makes sense, we can remember it better, we can learn it better, we can learn it more easily. Well, I'm going to say that everything Liberace here does makes sense. And so anyone who took like my harmony workshop or my harmony course or has just heard me talk about harmony at all, you know there's basically like 3 or 4 things I always talk about. I talk about using diatonic chords in the circle of fifths, 2, 5, 1s, right? I talk about secondary dominance a ton, tonicizing a chord by giving it its own 5 chord. And I talk about that minor 4 chord I love so much. Well, let's listen to this piece. It's in F. Already I heard N minor 4. Why did I recognize the minor 4 chord? Because I know that chord so well. I know that minor 4 chord. I'll tell you right where it happens. minor fourth chord. How did I know that? Because I know what a minor fourth chord sounds like. If I tell you over and over again, harmony is built on those four pillars of diatonic chords following the circle of fifths, introducing secondary dominants, and introducing borrowed chords, of which there's multiple ones, but that minor fourth chord is the one. And then, yeah, passing diminished chords, a couple of augmented sixth chords, a couple other things, but there's like half a dozen concepts to learn. And when you know those concepts, it's all chord progressions are going to start being real familiar. So I started listening to this and realized I was playing it along with him almost as fast as he was playing it, or sometimes ahead of him. So check this out.
You can wish on a star, and your wish will come true. You can do anything you believe you can do. All the good things in life are just waiting for you. With the magic of believing, there's no journey too far.
And that's going to be the same thing again, right? So I'm going to be ahead of him.
If you'll only believe, if you'll just understand, all the joy of the world will be there at your hand. With the magic of believing.
So, my point is, yeah, everything in there was circle of fifths, 2-5-1 chord progressions, and then I recognized the sound of the secondary dominant going there. I recognized the sound of that minor four chord when it happened. There's only so many tricks in the book, and if you know those tricks, you recognize them instantly, and I can, like, now I remember it. Like, so, like, I only heard this song for the first time a few minutes ago. I don't remember the melody. That was the first A section right there. So I know those chords already because they're following such a predictable pattern. And if you know harmony, you can get that pattern. So if that is the impetus you need to decide, yeah, maybe I really finally do need to study harmony, check out my workshop. It's free. Just go check it out. If you really want to get deep, then, you know, check out the harmony course. But that's how you learn to do that, by learning this language. That's how you learn to do things like what I showed about taking Williams' melody and putting chords to it where certain places they had natural chords they kind of wanted to have, and I would recommend using those chords. And Trevor's chords totally make sense in that way as well. So, I feel like I want to hear the bridge because I assume that was 2 A sections. I assume now is a B section. Oh. Okay, so little key change. Okay, then so here's what I'm hearing. That bridge felt like a new key. And that's typical, that when you hit the bridge of a song, it goes to another key. It's probably going to come back to F, but the questions I'm asking myself right now, before I even sit down at the piano, is did it sound sharper or flatter on the circle of fifths? I think it sounded sharper, but okay, so what I'm aware of is the sharpness, but I'm also aware of the upness of it. And sometimes I'm not aware of that, but I was aware of going from F to F sharp, that note. Sometimes that's not the thing I'm aware of, but usually I'm aware of did it go to a sharper key or did it go to a flatter key? Was it near on the circle of fifths, like from F to C? It's only 1 step difference on the circle of fifths. From F to G is only 2 steps different. From F to D is 3 steps. F to A is 4 steps different on the circle of fifths. I'm not talking about how many steps on the piano. I'm talking about how many ticks on the clock of the circle of fifths. From F to C is 1 step sharper. F to G is 2 steps sharper. So in any case, that's what I'd be hearing.
If your share of trouble seems
So it went to B. Now I know this. So I was aware of that motion from F to G, F to F sharp, but then I got confused about what had happened after that, and now I know why I was confused, because it actually went to the key of B. And that is the single rarest modulation in all of music. So I want to hear that again.
of believing.
We're in F.
If your share of trouble
Now we're in B.
seems to be
So that modulation from F, and then da, 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 modulation from F to B. That's modulation of a tritone. So that's all the way across the circle of fifths. That is the farthest modulation you can do in music, is modulation by tritone. So if you modulate by tritone, you are going all the way, like, yeah, from F, that's 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, 5/5, 6/5. It is 6 perfect fifths away from F. So on the circle of fifths, the circle of fifths has 12 points around the clock face, right? 6 is all the way across. That's as far away as you go. Because as soon as you go 7 away, well, that's really 5 in the opposite direction. 6 steps sharper, 6/5 or 6 ticks sharper is 5 ticks flatter. So 6 is as far away as you can go, because if you go, 7 ticks, I'm sorry, I probably said that wrong. 7 ticks sharper is 5 ticks flatter. 8 ticks sharper is 4 ticks flatter. So you can't go more than 6 ticks away from where you started. So that modulation from F to B is the furthest modulation can go, and it is the rarest modulation in all of music. Yeah, it is definitely the rarest. And in fact, a cute little story I'll tell you, and then I'll move on. I was writing a book on harmony like 20 years ago, and I wanted to give examples of all the different modulations. And I had examples of every other modulation except that one. I couldn't even think of a single song that did it. Now I got 2. Because I couldn't think of one, and I was all ready to go to press with the book, and I was a little disappointed. And in the book, I wrote something like, oh, that's that modulation to the key of a tritone away, 6 ticks on the circle of fifths. That modulation is so rare that I don't know of a single song that does it. And I was all ready to go to press with that version of the book. And then one night, I was listening to the radio. You remember that thing? And Marion McPartland, a British pianist who had a weekly radio show called Piano Jazz, and where she interviews some other musician, usually a pianist, and they play songs and talk. She had, whoever her guest was, I don't even remember what, said, I'm going to play next a song called Warm Valley by Billy Strayhorn. And Marion said, oh, I love that song. I do it in the Marion voice, but I love that song. It's so unusual. It's actually the only song I know that modulates to the key of the tritone, or some words to that effect. And I was like, oh my God! I just found a song that goes to the tritone because Marion McPartland told it to me. And then, sure enough, that's what it is. It modulates to the key of the tritone. So anyhow, that modulation is crazy. So. And then I was able to update the book and give that example in there. So as you do that, and does it stay in B?
like a mountain.
Yeah, another 2, 5, 1 in B. All right, here's another little thing. I have not listened any further. It that da 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 2, 5, 1 in B, then again 2, 5, 1 in B. I'm going to guess what comes next. What I think is going to come next is it's either going to be. Yeah, it's going to be a 2, 5, 1 in C. And I say that because the most common thing to happen at the middle half of a bridge, regardless of where the first half of the bridge goes, the second half of the bridge usually goes to the original 5 chord. We started in F, the original 5 chord was C, so there'll usually be a second modulation to the key of C. Now, I don't know that that's going to be the case, but let's find out.
All you need is just
2, 5, 1 in C.
faith,
And then he's going to do it again. And then the reason that's so popular is then we can take that 5 chord and make it minor and turn it into a 2-5 in the original key.
And the mountain will move aside.
And now we're back in the original key.
So believe in your dream. Never throw it away. Follow close to your star, and you won't go astray. Every day of your life will be your lucky day with the magic of believing.
Here we go. So, I don't know the melody, but I know the chords. Now I got to write it out in a piano arrangement for it. So, that's my contribution to the project. Okay, so I said that I wanted to give Abraham a moment to be here if possible, but it looks like that didn't happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you his piece, but then I'm going to write up something because I don't know everything to tell you about this, but I'm going to show you the piece and then I'll post it and we'll do what makes sense. But here is the piece as he has it. So he has this piece here with multiple sets of chords. And he's turned off the chord playback. So we're just going to hear the melody. So that's, and I'll keep playing, why not? And then it repeats. So this is the thing, and he's got like 2 different chords. I'm playing the bottom chords, and now this time, oh no, that was it was a mixture. I'm going to play. There's the minor 4 sound. In this case, it's actually 2 half diminished in the key of A, B half diminished. So 2 chord half diminished is basically minor 4 because B half diminished has D minor built into it. So he's using that sound also. And actually Liberace sometimes played that chord also. And then he's got multiple chords here. So he's got different chords that he's kind of laying out as possibilities there. One of them is what he says is the original set of chords that comes from Handel. And then he wrote a new melody and then new chords. So I'm gonna post what I can of this and get him to give information there in the community about it. But what he's asking is that, he wants to see someone else write new melody to his substitute chords. Yeah, there's a whole story about how he wants us to see it happen. And it's just gonna be a little competition. And then we'll friendly competition of seeing who can write things to this and make it work well, and then he has a little prize in mind there. So we'll be talking about that more in the community going forward. So, so the thing is that that melody is so I will clarify that with him and with this. But what he told me is that this melody comes from the chords from a Handel piece, but he changed the melody and then he changed the chords. So it sounds very much like it's a familiar melody, and it probably has familiar elements to it, but supposedly it's an original melody based on Handel's chords, so it probably resembles Handel's melody because it was fitting his chords. Anyhow, we'll find out more soon. But yes, there will be a prize. There will be a prize, and so we will talk more about that as we get to post about it. So, I said I was going to cover these 4 things, and I somehow, one way or another, managed to do it, right? So let's do a quick recap, and then I will, I'll do almost identical. Da-da-da-da-da-da. That little bit of melody sounds like 100 other melodies to me, because it's a logical melody. It's a very, right, this is 1-5-1, simple, and then is just walking down a scale, right? Okay, so to summarize, we talked about the collaboration project, the round robin. So by all means, people want to contribute to that, do so, but be realizing that it's going to be, a synchronization thing, and be thinking about that as much as you think about the music, and that piecing it all together is part of the challenge. Think about Megan's thing there that she has going with the Liberace piece. I just fed you all the chords. Right? And now maybe someone can write it out for her. Rite of Spring. Wow, really? Maybe somewhere in there. I don't know. That name isn't necessarily relevant to the music. It's relevant to his culture and where he's coming from. So we looked at Megan's piece, and I would love it if someone else could write an arrangement for her. I gave you the chords already, and then with Abraham's thing, I will post more about that. With PA Yesu, I will post a link to it, so anyone who wants to participate in that can do so as well. So I'm now going. Oh no, I didn't mean to close that window. I can get it back though. I need it. Because what I'm going to do is save the chat before we go. So that I can post the chat. I meant to close this so that I can get back to my theme music more easily. And we can close out the session. So I hope everyone's enjoyed this somewhat unusual session that we just did here. But, we got to talk about music while talking about collaboration. I got to talk about harmony, got to talk about melody, got to talk about a lot of different things. I always come back to harmony, though, I'm going to. A little bit about counterpoint and compositional process we got to talk about, all through the discussion of the idea of collaboration. So, I hope everyone has enjoyed the session, and find some time to participate in one or more of these projects. They're really interesting, fun things to do, to work with other musicians on creating music. It's like it's a wonderful thing to do. I recommend it, and I will see you all next time. Okay, bye everyone.